We do this periodically where we have spiritual questions on the path from you. And it's kind of nice because it gives a little sense of aliveness, what's in the field, what's on your heart and mind. And, I know some of you like to try to stump the minister. And that can be fun too. Also, I just always clarify that there are... this is not answers I'm giving you. They are responses, right? You always have the answers within. So they're just my perspective, responses. Hopefully something will help point you to the answers within or help you on your journey in some way. So, okay. You ready? Shall we dive in? All right. I got to pause for a moment before we even start. So this one came in online. Please share your insight on how to respond when you've prayed and visualized something for over 3 years and it still hasn't come to fruition. That's a tough one, isn't it? When we have really feel like I've done the work, I've held the vision, I'm staying the course, I'm trying to stay positive about it all. And, what is that song? I prayed, I got what I didn't get what I prayed for, essentially, I got what I needed. What's that? Can't always get what you want, that's another, yeah, there you go. But not to be flippant about it, because it's a very real, deep concern that we may have on our journey along the way. And one of the things is with our co-creative teachings, sometimes we tell people, be very specific, right? Spirit's got to know, what do you want? You got to ask for what you want. You got to be very specific. And while that is one part truth, yes, there's also another part of the giving over, the letting go, the opening up, the possibilities, the allowing for Spirit to deliver what it is that would truly fulfill us. Because we may have an idea that it's got to be this way, and that's the way we keep working and taking action and praying for and visualizing. And all the while, there's a knock at the door saying, that's not really the direction that you're being called to go. So I think it's really important for us to be willing to lay it all down, to give over, which is another way of saying surrender, not give up, give over, and really let ourselves sit with what it is that we're really after. Sometimes too, we get really focused on, it's got to be the relationship or it's got to be the job, but what are we really after? What is it that we want in the relationship? What is it that we think will come when we have the relationship? Maybe companionship, right? Maybe the joy of sharing the journey. Friendship necessarily, if it's a life partner, friendship and more, right? Romantic connection, intimacy, all those things that we may wish for. And why do we want those things, We want connection. We want company. We want support, perhaps. We want the joys of life to be shared. So it's like if we can distill things a little bit more to the bigger picture of what it is that we're really after, we might find we've been knocking on the wrong door for a long time. Not wrong door, but we've been knocking on a door that isn't opening, and we keep knocking on that same door in that same way. And so it's like, give it over, open up, get really clear on what it is, what am I really looking for? If you're looking for work, maybe you're looking for financial stability, you're looking for fulfillment, a sense of purpose. Okay, that's what I'm looking for, Spirit. I'm opening to the various ways. Surprise me in what I'm able to do and what might come my way that would be not something I would ever possibly think of doing, perhaps. So the old ways of thinking through, of setting our goals, of following our goals, of taking action, I don't say old in the sense of throw them out. We still are going to need those pieces, but start big. Start with spirit. Open your heart and your mind. Sit in meditation. Write out your wishes. The question has a second part to it. Please give us some tips on how to be patient and resilient when waiting for spirit to move. Great question, and spirit is always moving. There is no waiting for spirit to move. Spirit is always moving. The question is, am I moving in alignment with spirit? That's the heart of this question. Am I moving in alignment with spirit? And so if I'm not, or if I don't know, then how can I open up my practice to get in alignment so that I can receive the opportunity that is right here at my doorstep? So that alone, those things, getting into the feeling tone, right? We talked about this several weeks ago when we talked about the third principle of unity, co-creation, that a long time New Thought has emphasized thought, which is also, of course, very powerful. But if you're just thinking about things and you don't have the feeling tone of like, what does it feel like when I have arrived at that place? I'm in that work situation, or I'm in that financial situation, or I'm in that relationship situation. How does it feel for me? So you not only vision it like it's off somewhere, but you put yourself in it. And it's from here, right? It's already here anyway. And so it's feeling it, experiencing it, tasting it, touching it, imagining it, knowing it. It's like that story that Greg Braden tells about the man. He goes up on a hill with I think he might have been a Hopi elder. And it was drought time, and the man said he was going to pray. And he went and stood in this sacred circle for a little bit, and then he came out, and Greg said, "Was that it? You're gonna, what are you gonna say? What's going on?" And he said, "Oh no, you don't understand. I'm not praying for rain. I'm praying rain. I'm feeling the rain. I close my eyes and I feel the rain on my head. I feel it on my shoulders. I feel it running down my body. I feel the coolness. I feel the breeze that comes before the rain comes. I feel the nourishment, that my body feels nourished, and I feel the nourishment of the earth. I can feel and notice how the earth is just soaking up the rain and how everything is coming alive again." That's a prayer. Right? That's it. It's like we want to be in that space. We want to feel that space. So I understand, and I feel great compassion for the question, because I think it can be very hard to be in that place where you feel like I'm doing all this work and it doesn't seem like it's working. And so it's not that you have done anything wrong. It's that you want to move the way spirit is already moving, and pray yourself into the experience already done. Feel your way into that. Another way to say it is change the channel to a bigger network. I made a little note of that earlier. This one is, if you could teach the entire world just one concept, what would it be? Ooh. Yeah, you got to really drill it down there, right? Kindness. I'd say kindness, yeah. So much would come from kindness. We talk a lot about love, and then it feels a little bit amorphous. What does love look like? What is it in action? It's kindness. And if we are kinder to ourselves, if we are kinder to each other, if we are kinder to our neighbors and the strangers of the world, then I feel like we resolve so much. And we return to the truth of who we are in that. I have to credit my cousin who watches online once in a while and contributes once in a while online. Thank you very much, Deb Romery. In case she's watching, I'll tell her to tune in. I interviewed her recently as part of an ancestry project, and she's achieved a lot in her lifetime. And she's just sort of very humble about all of that. And she's like, that isn't that important to me anymore. She's like, the one thing I want people to say about me when I make my transition is she was kind. I want my legacy to be kindness. And that just really yeah, me too. Dalai Lama said that too? See, we're in good company. Okay. Have humans figured out how to keep progressing towards something better? Yes. 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 It's a yes or no question, right? I believe we have. I believe we know. I believe we have the answers. It doesn't always seem apparent because, we have stops along the way, right turns, left turns, obstacles, perceived or otherwise. But I do believe we are always progressing. And even if it looks like, as the Baptists used to call it, backsliding, right? Even if it looks like it's going in the direction opposite of the way that we want to go, that's all part of the growth. It's all part of the healing. It's all part of the awakening. So if we can just hang on to that knowing, it doesn't mean we don't act. It doesn't mean we just sit around and go, oh, okay, it'll all be fine. It's not about that. It's not about not acting. It's not about not making the world a better place and doing everything we can to do so. But it's just holding that bigger picture, knowing this is all a part of it. This is all a part of the awakening. This is all a part of our progression. We cannot help but progress. It's our nature because we are in essence divine. And that is what divinity does. It keeps evolving, opening, growing, and so too do we. I feel like maybe we should have a pause between each one, huh? Because they're really good questions and they're really big concepts. How are you feeling? Do you want me to just keep blazing on? Okay. Do we just, maybe just take a breath between each one? Okay, yeah. And a recap. Okay. The first one we talked about, you want me to go back and recap? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Was about aligning with spirit. Yeah, moving with spirit. Moving with spirit. Okay. Okay. You want to feel the flow. Nice. I like it. Very nice suggestion, Annika. Okay, so we've moved with spirit. We've landed into kindness. Is that all we've done so far? It seems like we've done so much more. Progressiveness of humankind, evolution. This one, pardon? Can't always get what you want. Man, we have a lot of Beatles fans, huh? Stones, excuse me, Stones. What a gaffe. I love Mick Jagger. No, seriously. Is suffering a necessary part of the human condition? Great question. I say no. I don't think so. I do think that pain and pressure are likely a part of the human walk and very difficult to avoid those experiences. And we don't ultimately want to avoid them in the bigger picture because it's what creates growth. But suffering is a choice. Pain's going to happen, but suffering is a choice. So that would be the distinction that I think is really important to make, because we can move with pain. We can live with, a lot of people live with pain, right? A lot of people live with physical pain. A lot of people live with emotional pain. We always hope that we can move through it, that we can better it, that we can, experience greater health and wholeness and energy and movement and emotional freedom. And it's also part of the human walk. So, but if we ruminate, if we, awfulize, if we, bring all our friends into the conversation about how awful it is, we create more suffering for ourselves and all the people around us. So that's a choice. That's a choice. Yes. I think I want to just stick with the questions, but maybe leave a little space at the end. Is that okay for spontaneous comments? I just know that once we open the floor for that, we can kind of go off, and then people will feel like, well, I didn't get my question answered, and so on. Responded to, yeah. How do I find what I would love to do? Well, I think trying the things that you think you might love to do is a good start. Again, back to that action principle. I was telling somebody between services about once when, do you remember Neil Donald Walsh, Conversations with God? When he was on tour, he said something once that really stuck with me, that sometimes we're waiting for the guidance and we take no action. And it's actually, we don't really know which way to go until we take the action and then feel into it and see like, oh, yeah, this still feels pretty good. Or it feels scary, but it also still feels like the right direction. Or maybe I shift directions. So I think to know what we love to do is to, you could reflect, you could inquire, you could consider the times you have felt the most joy, and then see if there's something connected to that you were doing, some kind of activity, and then consider that. Often it's when we're children that we are very much connected to our natural joy, playfulness, and all of that. So I don't know if the question is more about do for work or just do for life. So how do I find what I love to do? That I think, again, always inquire within, but also try it out, experiment, try some different things, consider what brings you joy, and see. How do I learn to love myself? Come to Catherine Ramadi's workshop next Sunday. Yeah, she wrote a book called Befriend Yourself. Catherine used to be a part of our community. She moved to LA. She's a meditation teacher, and we're really thrilled she's coming next week. So I really would recommend you go to her workshop, because she spent a lot of time thinking about what she calls going from to get to we love, we need some me love, and befriending ourselves and self-love is a key part of it. So that's a practical suggestion to learn to love yourself. And also just, I would say, be generous with yourself. Be forgiving and kind to yourself. Give yourself grace, because that opens the way. That opens the way. I know in the past I have been much more harsh with myself. And it wasn't fun. It's not fun to always be pushing yourself to do better, do more, to be self-critical, and instead to just go, oh, maybe I could just enjoy things, be present, just say oops and move on when we make a mistake. Those kinds of, I think that graciousness and generosity can go a long way to self-love. But Catherine will have much more to share with you. If I am God, in parentheses, non-dualist, this is a heavy one, why do I have suicidal thoughts? Well, first of all, I just want to, take a moment to, feel that and realize the depth and the heaviness of somebody who has those feelings and thoughts. And to recognize that, just to hold it in a space of compassion. And then put it in the context of, if I'm God, then why would I ever have these thoughts? I think part of it is, in fact, because we are divine, because we are, you've heard this so many times, but I'm going to invite you to hear it in a new way, like a fresh way right now, that you're a spiritual being having a human experience. Because we are spiritual beings, in truth, having a human experience can sometimes be really hard. And sometimes we want to just get out, go home, because we imagine home to be this really amazing place of absolute love and out of the density of 3D physicality, and to be freer. And so I think sometimes it's like, this is painful, and so I want to get out of here. And I just want to encourage whoever is feeling that way to go back to self-love and generosity to self and compassion for the human journey that you're on, and work with the pain in a way that maybe doesn't turn into suffering, but in a way that getting tools and help to meet you with the pain, That can be therapy, that can be all kinds of different kinds of therapy, healing work, could be old stuff you're carrying from childhood as well. So there's so many different reasons why we might get to that place of feeling suicidal. But since it's placed in a spiritual context of, if I'm God, why, I want to answer from that place. And then the second part to that question is, did Jesus feel suicidal or have suicidal thoughts? No way of knowing that for sure, but I would say from what I perceive of Jesus, I don't think so. I think he had a clarity of purpose. I think he had deep pain around the idea that he had to leave so soon, and that he left in such a barbaric way. And so it seemed to me that was difficult transition and exit from the physical experience. But I don't see anything or perceive anything, thank you, Mike, in my experience of Jesus to say that would have been true for him. It does not mean that you're any less spiritual because you have those feelings, though. I just want to put a fine point on that. In fact, sometimes those of us who are very emotionally sensitive are also very spiritually sensitive. A lot of times when people have substance abuse issues, Myrtle Fillmore even talked about this, our co-founder of Unity, that people who tend toward more drugs and alcohol are highly sensitive usually. And so there's a tendency to want to dull the pain, dull the feeling, because they feel so much. And so our spiritual journey encourages us to get support to feel, because that can really create breakthroughs and growth for us. Breathe. What practices do you recommend to stabilize our connection and alignment to Source? I think we talk about our practices a lot, about different options, and I think it's important that we all investigate that a little bit ourselves, and try new things. So find a regular practice that is sort of this is what I would recommend. You find your practice that is your rock that you always go back to. So for me, meditation would probably be the rock to go back to that just always gives. Even if a single session isn't necessarily giving something because my mind is too busy in that session, it's still a place to go back to that feels very stabilizing to me. But then I try a lot of different things, and I do a lot of different things. Some of them I do a lot, some of them I do a little. So I think find your pathway. And it can be so many things, right? It can be movement, can be creativity, writing, making music. It can be running, it can be swimming, it can, chanting. It can be like a very obvious spiritual practice, and it can be something you might consider more physical or artistic, yet there is a spiritual component to it in your practice. So I think I would encourage us to find a stabilizing practice, find that rock practice, that this is what I do regularly, because then you're really seeding that energy, and it's like you tell your whole body and brain and everything, all parts of you, this is what we do when we go into meditation. And so because you keep practicing, it just becomes easier and easier. And it is a practice that has lots of research behind it that shows that it does, in fact, help us to greater peace, greater kindness, opening to center, to love, to all of these wonderful things. It looks like we're going to have way more questions than we'll ever get to, and they're still flowing in. Thank you. What is the best, in parentheses, easiest or most effective or most reliable way to transition between the dimension of 3D duality and the dimension of one presence and one power? Ooh. That's easy. Chocolate. We do have fast track bridges. I would, if I have to pick one thing, in a very specific and simple example, I would say breath, working with the breath. Because the breath is at the essence of life. It is life, right? So breath gives us life, so that gives us 3D existence. And yet breath is also spirit. You know, when Jesus came to the apostles after he had resurrected and appeared to them in the ascension, it said that he breathed on them, which, you know, just reading that sounds kind of strange, but he was breathing, like giving a blessing of life, of spiritual life. And the same is true of the early prophet, or not prophets necessarily, but key figures of the Hebrew scriptures, like Abraham changed his name and Sarah changed her name, and Sarah added the H to her name and Abraham added the H to his, so from Abram to Abraham and Sarah to Sarah. So it's got breath of life, it's got breath of spirit in it, and it's like that oneness of our human beingness and our spirituality. So I guess if I had to choose one thing as the easiest, most effective, most reliable transition to bring us there, I'd say breath. And often you'll hear people say, you know, oh, I notice I'm breathing really shallow. You know, well, you wouldn't notice unless you bring your attention to it. And then when you bring your attention to it, you can deepen. And when you deepen, you get closer to center, as our song brought us back to center. So I would say that, to keep it simple. So I haven't been doing a very good job of recapping, as Annika said. So we stabilized our connection and alignment to Source a few moments ago, and now we're talking about a reliable transition between 3D reality and the oneness, the presence, the power, and that would be breath. Is Jesus the way, quote unquote? Oh, that brings me back to Columbia, Missouri, when a fundamentalist church in town, I was a brand new minister, and we had a panel discussion at the local university, and it was stacked. And the question is Jesus the way? And I was definitely an outlier. And it was a beautiful experience to be in that kind of environment, because I'm used to speaking in an environment that's like we're of not necessarily exactly one mind, but, you know, we have kind of similar ideas and beliefs, and it's a very loving atmosphere. So anyway, so that was a real aside. But I guess maybe it does kind of play in, because there are folks in Christian evangelical mainstream would say Jesus is the way, like as in the only way, right? So that's the difference, I guess, the way and the only way. Jesus is a primary way in the foundation of unity as a way shower, as a master teacher. If you look at the teachings of Jesus, the experiences of Jesus, the demonstrations of healing, the things he said, I think it does open a very primary path for us. Is he exclusively the way? Of course not. That would mean people born on the other side of the planet, Buddhist or Hindu or whatever, would not be necessarily born into religions that were the way. I don't like the arrogance of that idea. I've had conversations with my sister about this one. So I think Jesus can be a way for many of us, and is a way for many of us, perhaps the way for you. It's a personal question. Perhaps the primary way for you, and maybe your way is a wider path. I have that image in my mind of Buddha and Jesus and Krishna, and it says we're all walking each other home. You know, so the three of them showing the way. There's many paths, right? There's many paths to the one. So I think the question is really for you personally: is Jesus my way, or is Jesus the primary way I'm walking right now on my path? Is maybe a more specific way to hone in, because things change, right? There's been times I've meditated with a picture of Jesus in front of me and a statue of Kuan Yin, very devotional kind of thing. I have a laughing Jesus on my desk in the office. I have a yoga Jesus on the wall. And those help me. Those images help me because I have a lot of reverence for Jesus, and Jesus is a way for me, a primary way, but not an only way. Very open to other ways and other processes that help pave the way. So I hope that helps you and to consider for yourself. Breath. So that was about Jesus being the way. And this actually flows really nicely. Can we have more discussion about the inter-Christ and how to manifest it? So we often say inner Christ, inter-Christ. I guess that's similar, but it kind of gives me a sense of the relationship inside versus just the idea of the innate divine or the innate Christ consciousness. So I'm not sure if the person who wrote the question expected to make that nuance in the writing. But so I'll go with the actual word inter-Christ. And so it indicates the relationship, and we could have a lot of discussion about that, of course, yes, in the future and more in different ways, but just for a few moments to say how to manifest it. So to manifest the interrelationship with the Christ consciousness, I think a lot of the things we've already talked about, but you can also, again, so much of unity is about the individual path. So I have to just keep putting it back to us individually to say, what really works for you. So in that, developing that relationship of opening yourself to Christ consciousness. Christ consciousness in a word could be love, could be wisdom, and there are other words that could, of course, go with that. So I think asking yourself, well, what's that quality that I'm seeking in this inter-Christ relationship, this inter-Christ within me? And maybe it is love, or maybe it is a sense of I'm acting from Christ consciousness. So because the question also talks about manifestation. So there's a sense of expression of what do I bring forth when I work with this relationship. So there can be kind of an inquiry. I go back to Jesus' words, ask and it is given, seek and you shall find, knock and the door shall be opened. So that to me opens up the relationship. I'm opening up the relationship with this Christ consciousness, this idea of maybe for you it's love, maybe it's divine love in its essence. What would you teach me today? Love. It could be a question you sit with. And then let that question be your guide throughout your day. And see what comes forth from that, because the manifestation will be the expression that you experience. So try to keep it simple there to one possibility. Oh, thank you. Somebody has written, please know if anyone is feeling suicidal or in crisis that you can call 988, the suicide crisis line, anytime. Also 211 for our county is another number you can call for any services, including getting you to help with suicide. So thank you for that very caring note that somebody passed. Okay, here's the ones that are more live, and there's some that we had earlier. How we doing? Couple more? I'm just going to trust the magic ones are going to come forth. Oh, okay, so somebody has written a follow-up to the earlier question of the suffering and pain question. Why would God want you to continue to be in physical pain for years despite prayer for healing? Another tough one, right? I don't think God wants anybody to be in pain. So I don't think that it's a want. But what happens from our pain? How do we deal with what is present for us? Could be an opening to further growth and deeper growth. So Spirit is always delivering to us opportunities to grow. And we are always in this world having opportunities to grow, come forward as a part of that grand experiment of being human, being spiritual beings, having a human experience. And so if we can meet the things that come our way with a sense of, what is mine to learn here? What is this pain teaching me? To go into the pain itself and ask the pain, why are you here? And maybe you might want a mediator, a counselor, somebody to ask the questions for you so that you can, be in that kind of space, or you can inquire within yourself. But to go actually into it, it's amazing how much wisdom the body holds. And so the body knows what you need, and the body can help you heal. So if you go into those spaces where the pain resides, breathe into it, give it some spaciousness. Now, sometimes when we breathe into pain, we feel it more acutely, right, initially, because we're bringing attention to it. We're not putting icy hot on it. So, so the sensation of the icy hot will make the pain go, but that's how that works, That's actually a really amazing thing that we have available to us too, is you put a balm on that, and you feel the burning sensation, and then suddenly that's what you're present to, which shows you how the mind works. So I'm suggesting, though, that we do pay attention to it for the purpose of the inquiry, to go deeper into it and to ask, why have you come? Why are you here? What are you here to teach me? How can we work together? How can I have greater ease? Trust your body's wisdom. That's spirit coming through your body. And have that inquiry. Maybe do it as a journal if you like to write. In the past, I've done dominant, non-dominant hand writing. So you write your question with your dominant hand, and then you write the answer with your non-dominant hand. Slows things down. It allows maybe different insight to come through. So there's a lot of different techniques you can use to be in relationship with your pain, and to let yourself have a renewed relationship with it, not just I want it to go away, kind of, which of course we all want that. We don't want it there to begin with. But the more we just push away and say, I don't want you here, the more we're not opening to the opportunity of what might be here for us. Okay, we're getting kind of late. I'm going to do one more. So that one was about physical pain and suffering, and healing and prayers. And again, I want to acknowledge for this person, despite years of prayers for healing, again, it's like, don't you just feel that? And it's like, there is a great compassion there for all the work you've done, for all the prayers you've said, for the faith that you continue to bring to this. And that others will hold for you. Our prayer chaplains will hold for you. So reach out, get some, compassionate, prayerful support from others as well. Let go and let God. Be open to new possibility. Learn to listen carefully to direction, kindness, progress, growth, awakening. Amen. Love it. Just a little moment. Okay, I already spoke to the take a little bit. Okay, feeling like we spoke to that one a little bit already. We know that unity was founded on the principle that we can heal ourselves. Why do you think it's easier for some to sit in a place of suffering rather than apply the principle and tools to heal? That is a really good question. We talked about pain, and we get kind of in a familiar pain space, don't we, sometimes? And it's like, so this is what I'm used to, and we work within what we might say to ourselves, the limitation we've been dealt. And that may be what we need to do, perhaps. But there are also these principles and tools that you might know that you have not applied yet, that are available to you, and you're wondering, like, why am I not, at least trying some of these tools and practices that might make me feel better and might actually bring forth more healing. So it's kind of like that question we had when we talked about principle number 4, why don't we pray? All these goodies to be had, so why don't we do it? Well, there's lots of different reasons why we don't, and probably just as many reasons as there are people in the room. So I would just encourage whoever's asking the question, if it's for yourself, to consider, what might be in my own way to branch out and to try something new, to be willing. And maybe it's because you're afraid it won't work. And then what? That if this is my last big hope and then I try it and it doesn't work, then what? And again, what does it mean to not work? It means that I have a very specific idea of how this should go and what the outcome is. And if that doesn't happen, then it's a failure, or I have failed spiritually. You go back to principle number 1. It's, we do live in a divine mystery. There is a bigger allness to spirit, and sometimes we don't fully understand. But I want to go back to one of the early questions. We don't have to wait for spirit to move. Spirit is always moving. Spirit is always moving. Spirit is always moving toward our highest and best good. Spirit is always available to us. It's just about us getting ourselves out of the way and getting into that flow. And we've talked about a lot of practices, a lot of different ways to get there, a lot of different things to notice. And usually on our journey, the biggest thing is the obstacle we're throwing up, the resistance we have, right? It's not so much that we don't know what to do, it's that we have resistance to it. And so investigate that. What am I afraid of? What's going on here? Can I be generous with myself? Can I be kind to myself? Can I be loving with myself? Can I be patient with myself? And can I push myself to try something new? I think that kind of combination of those things gets us to move with spirit. So I think we're going to end there. There's more questions from earlier today, but I think we got most of the ones in the room. Yes. So we have an affirmation to affirm our curiosity and bring us to spiritual awakening, which was one of the questions at the early service was, what's the goal of humanity? And I said, basically to wake up to the fact that we're divine beings having a human experience. So here we go. It leads us right back to awakening. Together, my curiosity leads me to spiritual awakening. And so it is.